Story 1. They say you have an open invitation, but they never actually invite you to anything. Additionally, they do not celebrate your successes. Story 2. A subtle sign that someone isn't truly your friend is if they only reach out when they need something but vanish when you need support. True friendships are mutual, not one-sided. Story 3. If you always initiate the conversation and their response is consistently brief or limited to emoji reactions. Story 4. You feel like you are always doing favors for them, but they never return the favor or acknowledge your efforts. Story 5. They devalue your experiences. I did that 2 years ago. Everyone has experienced that. It's not a big deal. I wouldn't get excited. It's not like you won the Nobel Prize. That kind of negativity. Story 6. Selfishness occurs when people do not care about your feelings. A significant pet peeve of mine is when I have a friend who actively spends time with someone who has wronged me. Recently, I slipped a disc in my back and had a friend who wanted to go dancing. However, since I was hurt, I would have preferred to do almost anything else. Instead of considering changing plans, they asked me to drive them everywhere. Story 7. If you find that a lot of the humor in your friend group is at your expense, you need to reevaluate. Teasing only works if everyone is an equal target, and even then it can be toxic. Story 8. Always being late, making you late to events, or not showing up at all. Failing to prioritize your time. Story 9. They speak poorly of others, which definitely means they are talking about you as well. Friends do not behave that way. Story 10. They are never truly happy for you. Other people in your life will notice and tell you that this friend is jealous of you. Believe them. It may be hard to see because you are too close or you do not want to recognize the negative traits in that person. Story 11. If they know you are suffering badly and have the means to help but do not, while then accepting the same type of help from you and others, it raises questions. Story 12. I made arrangements with 2 members of my darts team. One had to cancel, and the other messaged me saying that since the first wasn't going, they would not go either. If someone does not want to spend time just with you, they are not a friend. Story 13. Never text, message, or notify you of anything and only interact with you when you make an effort to hang out or message. Story 14. When you are the therapist, it's acceptable to need a friend to vent to and seek advice from occasionally. However, if this friend consistently comes to you to vent without discussing anything else, or if when you try to vent to them, they turn the conversation back to their own issues, that is not okay. I try not to talk to a person I used to consider a friend, but now view as an acquaintance because this dynamic kept occurring. They would vent to me about their problems and the drama with boys, and I would offer advice, which they often ignored. They continued to come to me seeking help and venting, causing me significant stress until I finally told them I would no longer listen if this was all they talked about. It has reached a point where I remind them that I warned them, yet I still respect their issues. I believe people who do this are often seeking attention when they ignore their friends' advice and use them as their therapist. You can agree or disagree. I am merely expressing my perspective. It is not acceptable to have a friend who serves as your therapist while you are not there for them in return. If you need professional help, seek out a licensed therapist to discuss your issues. Story 15. When they continue to bring up everything you are doing wrong and stage an intervention to try to change aspects of you, but you are simply neurodivergent. Story 16. When you spend 4 years paying for every outing with them and then need them to check on your cat while you are camping for 3 days, and they take that opportunity to stay in your apartment, make a mess, eat the food in your fridge, upset your neighbors, and use your bed, then have the audacity to ask for financial compensation when you return. Story 17. All of the above, plus they deceive you just to exploit you. They act without consulting you first. Story 18. Believe what people do not express. You want to spend time with those you love, not just say the words. People will make time for you if you are important. Story 19. They bring up themselves immediately after you talk about yourself or turn every conversation into a competition. I bought my first car yesterday. I bought my first car years ago. Story 20. When they try to talk you out of things that are good for you because they do not want you to change. Story 21. Someone is trying to drag you down, hold you back, or discourage you from making progress in life. They may use guilt and nostalgia against you. This person might also ask you to contribute for food or drinks, but they never reciprocate. Story 22. Never actually listening to you when you just need a friend to talk to. They will constantly downplay your issue and turn it back to themselves. Story 23. So I moved to a friend's area, and in a year's time I had been to his place hundreds of times, but he never came to mine. Story 24. Thinking your services are free or heavily discounted because your friends is unrealistic. Sure, I'll babysit for an hour so you can go to the store or take care of tasks. But when you disappear for 18 hours, you're going to have to pay me. Story 25. I had a friend who told me, don't lose too much weight. Then you'll be hotter than me, and we won't be able to be friends anymore. She also told me my standards in guys were too high. The things I listed were basic decency important to any relationship, which I assumed her fiancé met for her. She spent about a year picking out the perfect yellow diamond for her engagement ring and wouldn't let her boyfriend of 10 years propose until she found the perfect stone. She mentioned attending fancy dinners with older bosses in her company who assumed she was single, as she wouldn't mention her boyfriend, in order to advance her career. She also didn't drive, which was unusual in our city, but whatever. She would brag about her income, but I earned more than she did and didn't care. We used to get sushi together. She would come use my pool, but she would put me down and make me feel bad about my life choices, as if I didn't deserve what she had. Eventually, I realized that she was selfish and self-centered. I didn't lose that much weight, but I did choose to stop being her friend, so I guess I lost the dead weight of that friendship. Story 26. I tell my students and players that you will eventually find yourself in a crisis where you will discover 3 types of friends. The classic example is a conflict at a social gathering, but it could be any type of crisis. The first type of friend will stay seated, watching you and the situation unfold. They aren't really your friend. They were just happy to be around when the situation was comfortable. The second type will stand beside you. They are your friend, willing to support you when the situation is uncomfortable. The third type will rush out in front of you to throw the first punch, even if you were not trying to escalate the conflict. Hold on to that friend. You need them in your life, even if they can be a headache sometimes. When things go bad, they will be there for you. Story 27. They threaten your economy, livelihood, and sovereignty. I am Canadian, and the United States is not our friend. Story 28. Unproductive arguments and negative talk about you are not my concern since I don't have any friends. However, these are the things I share with my daughter regarding the people she believes are her friends. I also advise her to be cautious with those who associate with them. Story 29. They only have time when they want something. You call them, and they can't talk. Then they call you saying, I was hoping you could. Story 30. They get upset when you don't lend them money, and you lose them as friends over trivial matters. I saved myself more than just money. Story 31. Personal experience that happened recently. When called out, they made multiple excuses, including, 1. My friends and I never make plans. We just hang out. Okay, but when I ask you if you want to hang out after work, you always say, I need to double check to see if I have plans. I've been really busy lately, or I've already made plans with my other friends today. When they say, we should really sit down and have a talk, I reply with, okay, since you are so busy, then you make the date. Then they ghost you. They only have genuine conversations when they want something from you. In this case, I work with them, and they only found the time to talk to me when they needed something done. I have a fiancé. I can't just go out for coffee or drinks with you and talk about things. Firstly, there are absolutely no romantic feelings toward this person. Secondly, what about your 5 or more other guy friends? When have you ever used that excuse with them? Excuses. No apologies, always excuses. Lies that never check out. It's easy to lie. It's harder to cover them up with more lies. Sorry. I always forget about plans we make. After being confronted with, if we take work away, what are we? There is no clear answer. After being confronted with, take 3 of your friends and tell me things you do with them as friends, followed by, when was the last thing we did as friends? They go silent. The list goes on. But these were the main red flags I finally noticed after only getting attention when multiple people wanted something from me but couldn't reciprocate any feelings and would rather lie and manipulate. Story 32. Backhanded compliments appear to support your achievements at first glance, but are phrased in a way that makes them insincere. Story 33. They verbally insult you and borderline threaten you or your friend. Next, you see them there like, "Hey buddy." Yeah, right, you verbally insult and then borderline threaten someone. "I want nothing to do with you." Story 34. They invite you and another friend over only for you to find out later it is a sleepover, but only for the other friend. Story 35. They invalidate the effort you put into the friendship and blame you for not being there for them, even though you reached out more than they have while going through hardship. Story 36. When they say something that you do but frame it as if someone else is doing it. For example, they give you a gift but you can't afford to buy them something right away, and they say, "I have a friend who I get gifts for all the time, but they never get me anything back. I know I have a lot of money, but I'd like something from them. This happened to me." The friend was a literal millionaire while I lived less than paycheck to paycheck, meaning my pay didn't make it to the next payday. Also, I sewed a lot and made them art and plushies, which they loved all the time. But because I didn't buy them something, I was considered a bad friend. I cut them off and later found out their boyfriend was inappropriate with their dog. Story 37. Whatever it is always about their timing. When you step back and look at it objectively, you realize they only reach out when they need something or when it is convenient for them. Story 38. I had a best friend from ages 13 to 35. At 35, I had a terrible experience that cost me a lot of money, caused other friends to disappear, and resulted in a taste of lost freedom. His reaction was, "I'm glad it wasn't me. We haven't talked since, which is almost 40 years. Maybe not so low-key, but certainly demonstrative." Story 39. They only come to you when they want something. Every time they invite you to a party, it's because they need a ride. Story 40. Only try to spend time with you to pass the time when their partner is busy. Minimize your accomplishments and emphasize their own due to insecurity. They are self-focused and seem not to really hear you or your perspective, only considering how you affect them. Story 41. They do not actively support your ambitions if they do not stand to gain anything. Whether you have a new job, a new relationship, or want to quit an addictive behavior, they only care about how available you are for whatever your friendship is based on. Story 42. Talking negatively behind your back. Not inviting you to events even though you invite them to yours. Never initiating contact. Using you for free food, drinks, or as their personal bank without ever paying you back or reciprocating. Story 43. As someone who fell victim to a narcissist with a victim complex, here are some signs I ignored. 1. Constantly making excuses to avoid hanging out with you or doing things you want, such as saying, "I can't go to that place. The manager doesn't like me," or "I don't want to go there. The sun is too hot today." Your other friends do not like them. They flirt with your exes and partners. They always manage to make everything about themselves. Story 44. When you treat them like family and then they undermine trade agreements, impose tariffs, and threaten to annex your country. Story 45. They are a police officer on duty asking you questions. It doesn't matter if you are completely innocent. If they even remotely suspect you of committing a crime, you are not putting yourself in a better position by speaking freely without a lawyer present. Story 46. When you think you are sharing a secret about someone, even without explicitly stating, "This is a secret," they go and tell that person what you said. Story 47. This is a trick I use to understand what they really think of you. Just say something nice about yourself and observe their reactions. Then you will know if they have good intentions towards you. Story 48. Extorts you for items in a game so you can still be their friend. I don't even know how they came up with that as the best approach. Story 49. The things they say they do for you are actually for their own benefit. I have a friend who constantly offers her house for me, even though I have repeatedly mentioned that after working for 12 hours on weekdays, I prefer to meet closer to home. I am often too tired to drive any more than absolutely necessary. They seem offended when I decline and remind me that I am always the one driving, while we never meet when she is tired or has other plans. Story 50. If you're always complaining that your friends don't urgently invite you to join their every Netflix and chill date, then you're not neglected. You're just higher maintenance than a used Range Rover. Story 51. When you hear them hitting on your boyfriend and saying that you were never really their friend and that you will never love them because you are a sociopath. Story 52. When they try to put you down in front of others, if they were your real friends, they would never do that. Story 53. When they try to beat you to your punchlines or the end of your story to show you how smart they are. Story 54. When you invite someone to an event and they say they are busy but will reach out when they have more time, you are left waiting. Story 55. When I go to drop something off at her house, which is a 5-minute walk away, I notice she has a party going on to which I wasn't invited. I received an invitation but decided to leave. Story 56. They are never excited by your achievements or congratulate you, sometimes going as far as to tell you all the negatives. For example, when you say, "I just got offered a new job," they might respond with, "You will have to drive further. It probably won't be as good as you think when you start working there. Don't get too excited. They could always change their mind. You will probably need to buy better clothes." It is never because they are just looking out for you. Story 57. If they never call you and expect you to always be the one who calls them, you may find yourself losing friends. I have lost many friends because I waited for them to reach out to me, but they never did. Story 58. You live in different countries, speak different languages, have never met, do not know each other's names, and one of you is deceased. Story 59. Only wanting to hear the positives in your life, but never the negatives. People go through different experiences in their lives, and it is normal to want to share those experiences with friends. Story 60. What really solidified it for me was when I reached out after my grandmother died suddenly. She had moved to be closer to us only a year prior, and I admitted that it was really upsetting for me. I received a response saying, "Oh, I'll text you after class. Just know I've seen this," but heard from no one in the group for a whole week afterward. I had also been dumped just a month prior to this, and no one checked on me. So I guess that. Story 61. She told me my collaborative partner never chose to marry me after 18 years together, so he obviously was not my partner, really. Story 62. When they choose to attend their long-lost, estranged relative's wedding instead of coming to poker night with the friends. Story 63. They are nice to you when you are alone, but they make fun of you when you are both in the peer group. Story 64. They never inquire about you, your life, or your interests. They are a burden, so let that go. Story 65. You always help them when they need it, and they disappear faster than the roadrunner when you need them. Story 66. You tell them you have been struggling with depression, and they respond, "That is why I am spending time with friends." And then they never call you back. That was over 2 months ago. I always knew it was a one-sided relationship. Story 67. Introducing you to my other friends. I have met all my friends at school, university, work, or during my travels. I invite them to events together and make them feel welcome. Many people have separate friend groups and keep them isolated from one another. I think this may be because they are not genuine and behave differently around different people, managing to maintain this act when both groups are present. Or perhaps there is another reason. Story 68. When they complain to you about their life, but when you try to talk about your life, they don't care, you are being used. Story 69. They are only present for the good times and when it benefits them. You cannot rely on them to be there for you during your lowest moments. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.